The lights in the lower levels of Haven Station flickered like dying stars. Dr. Jake Miller walked through the narrow corridors, his medical bag heavy in his hand. The air here smelled of rust and recycled oxygen. This was not the clean, bright upper levels where the important aliens lived. This was the bottom of the station, where nobody cared about broken things. Jake had been running his small clinic here for 3 years. The walls were old metal plates welded together. The floor was stained concrete. His equipment was mostly second-hand or rebuilt from scraps. But it worked, and that was what mattered. The people down here needed help, and Jake gave it to them. Haven Station was huge. It floated in space between star systems, a place where different alien species could meet and trade. The station had rules about who was important and who was not. The Altarians lived on the top floors because they had the best technology. The Vex Collective had their own section because they controlled trade routes. Humans lived in the middle levels. They were new to space, and most aliens thought they were loud and messy. At the very bottom were the refugees. Aliens who had lost their homes in wars. Species that other aliens did not like. The poor and the forgotten. Jake's clinic was their only hope when they got sick or hurt. Jake pushed open the door to his clinic. The waiting room had old plastic. Chairs and dim lights. A few patients were already there. A blue-skinned Rigelian sat in the corner, holding his arm close to his body. 2 small pixie creatures whispered to each other in their musical language. An old human woman named Mary sat near the door, coughing into a dirty cloth. "Morning, Doc," Mary said. Her voice was rough from years of breathing station air. "Morning. Mary, how are you feeling today? Been better? Been worse?" She shrugged. "You know how it is down here." Jake did know. Life in the lower levels was hard. People got sick from bad air and poor food. They hurt themselves working dangerous jobs. They fought each other when they had nowhere else to put their anger and fear. Jake fixed what he could and tried to make the rest hurt less. He went into his office and started his day. The Rigelian had broken his arm in a loading accident. Jake set the bone and made a cast. The pixies had eaten something that made them sick. He gave them medicine and told them to rest. Mary needed her monthly check for lung problems. Jake listened to her chest and refilled her prescription. Then the morning passed like most mornings. Sick people came in. Jake made them better when he could. He sent them away with hope when he could not cure them completely. It was simple work, but it mattered. Around noon, Jake heard shouting outside. He looked through his small window and saw a crowd gathering in the corridor. People were pointing and backing away from something. Jake grabbed his medical bag and ran outside. On the floor lay a young alien he had never seen before. She looked like a lizard, but walked on 2 legs. Like a human. Her skin was green with silver patterns. She was thin, too thin, and her breathing was fast and shallow. Her large yellow eyes were closed. "What happened?" Jake asked the crowd. "It just fell down," said a Vex trader. His metal body clicked as he talked. "Probably diseased. We should call security." "No," said a human worker. "We should help her." "Help a Kithra?" An Altarian female stepped forward. She was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and white hair. They are plague carriers. Everyone knows this. Jake knelt beside the alien girl. He had heard of the Kithra, but never seen one. Their planet had been destroyed in a war a few years ago. The survivors were scattered across the galaxy, unwanted everywhere they went. The girl's breathing was getting worse. Jake could see red spots on her neck and arms. Her temperature was very high. She needed help right away. "She has crimson flux," the Altarian said. "It will spread to all of us if we touch her." "That is not true," Jake said. He had read about crimson flux in medical journals. It only affected Kithera physiology. It cannot spread to other species. Lies, said the Vex trader. Humans know nothing about real medicine. More aliens had gathered now. A small crowd of different species stood in a circle around Jake and the sick girl. Most of them looked angry or afraid. A few looked curious. None of them looked willing to help. Move away from it, the Altarian commanded. Let it die. The galaxy is better without more Kithera. Jake looked at the faces around him. These were people he had helped before. People whose children he had treated. People whose lives he had saved. But now they wanted him to let someone die because of what species she was. No, Jake said quietly. What did you say? The Altarian stepped closer. I said no. Jake put his arms under the girl and lifted her. She was lighter than he expected. I am taking her to my clinic. The medical consortium forbids treatment of Kithera, the Vex trader said. You will lose your license. Then I lose my license. Jake carried the girl toward his clinic. The crowd followed, still arguing. Some aliens demanded he stop. Others said he was right to help. A few humans supported him, but most stayed quiet. Inside his clinic, Jake put the girl on his examination table. Her condition was worse than he thought. The red spots were spreading. Her breathing was so fast it looked painful. Her body temperature was dangerous. Please leave, Jake told his other patients. Come back tomorrow. Doc, you sure about this? Mary asked. These aliens, they got long memories for grudges. I am sure, Mary. After everyone left, Jake locked his door and started working. He had never treated a Kithera before, but medicine was medicine. He started with the basics, cooling her fever, giving her fluids, making her breathing easier. Outside, he could hear voices getting louder. Word was spreading through the lower levels. The human doctor was treating a Kithera. Some people were angry. Some were scared. Some were calling for station security. Jake ignored the noise and focused on his patient. Her yellow eyes opened and looked at him. She tried to speak, but only made a soft clicking sound. Jake smiled and touched her shoulder gently. Rest, he said. You are safe now. But as the voices outside grew louder and more angry, Jake wondered if that was really true. He had made his choice. Now he would have to live with whatever came next. The girl's breathing slowly became easier. Jake sat beside her and waited. In the corridors outside, the storm was just beginning. Jake worked through the night. The Kithera girl drifted in and out of sleep, her fever rising and falling like ocean waves. Every few hours, Jake checked her vital signs and adjusted her treatment. The red spots on her skin were fading slowly. But she was still very sick. When morning came, Jake heard heavy footsteps in the corridor outside. Through his window, he saw station security guards walking past. They wore dark uniforms and carried energy weapons. Their faces were hidden behind helmets, but Jake could feel their eyes watching his clinic. A message came through on his communication device. It was from Dr. Helen Ross, the chief medical officer for the human section of the station. Her voice was cold and formal. Dr. Miller, report to my office immediately. This is not a request. Jake looked at his patient. The girl was sleeping, peacefully for the first time since he found her. Her breathing was steady. Her fever had broken an hour ago. She was getting better, but she still needed care. I cannot leave right now, Jake said into the communicator. I have a patient who needs attention. Your patient is the reason you need to come here. Now, Jake sighed. He gave the girl some more medicine and locked his clinic from the inside. Then he took the service elevator to the human administrative levels. Dr. Ross was waiting in her office with two other people. One was Commander Paul Wright, the head of human security on the station. The other was a woman Jake did not recognize. She wore expensive clothes and had the look of someone used to giving orders. "Sit down, Jake," Dr. Ross said. She had been his friend once, back when they both worked at the main hospital. But friendship seemed far away now. "This is Ambassador Susan Clark from Earth," Dr. Ross continued. "She is here because of your situation." Ambassador Clark leaned forward. "Dr. Miller, what you did yesterday has created a diplomatic crisis. The Altarian Confederacy has filed an official complaint. The Vex Collective is threatening to reduce trade with human colonies. Even some of our own allies are questioning our judgment." "I treated a sick person," Jake said. "That is what doctors do." "You treated a Kithera with crimson flux," Commander Wright said. "The Galactic Health Consortium issued a directive this morning. No medical facility is allowed to treat that disease. It is too dangerous." Jake stood up quickly. "That is not true. Crimson flux only affects Kithera biology. It cannot spread to other species. I have read the research." "The research is wrong," Ambassador Clark said. "New studies show the disease has mutated. It could now infect multiple species. The consortium is protecting everyone by quarantining all cases." "Where are these new studies?" Jake asked. "Who conducted them?" "That information is classified," the ambassador replied. "What matters is that you must surrender your patient immediately." "And if I refuse?" Dr. Ross looked uncomfortable. "Jake, please be reasonable. Your medical license will be revoked. You will be banned from practicing medicine anywhere in human space. Is one alien worth destroying your career?" Jake thought about the girl lying in his clinic. She had no one else. No family, no friends, no government to protect her. If he gave her up, she would die alone in some quarantine facility. "Yes," he said quietly, "she is worth it." The three officials looked at each other. Commander Wright spoke first. "Dr. Miller, you have 1 hour to transfer your patient to station security. If you do not comply, we will take her by force." "And then?" "Then she will be processed according to galactic health protocols." Ambassador Clark said that Jake knew what. That meant the girl would disappear. No one would ever see her again. The galactic powers would say she died of her disease, and no one would question it because no one cared about the Kithera. "I understand," Jake said. He left the office and returned to his clinic. The girl was awake when he arrived. She was sitting up on the examination table, looking around with curious eyes. When she saw Jake, she made soft clicking sounds that might have been words in her language. "How do you feel?" Jake asked. She tilted her head, thinking. Then she spoke. In broken galactic standard, the common language of trade. "Better. You help me." "Why?" "Because you needed help. Others not help. Why you different?" Jake sat down beside her. "What is your name?" "Zara," she said. "I am last of my family, last of many families. Tell me about your people." Zara's yellow eyes became sad. "Kithera were proud people. We built great cities on green world. We made art and music. We studied stars and dreamed of peace." She paused. "Then others came. They said we were dangerous. They said we carried sickness. They destroyed our world with fire from sky. The consortium says you carry a plague." "Lies," Zara said firmly. "Crimson flux was made by them. They poisoned our air and water. Made us sick so others would fear us. Made easier to kill us all." Jake felt cold. "They created the disease?" "Yes, to make genocide look like medicine. Very clever. Very evil." Before Jake could respond, the clinic door exploded inward. Station security poured through the entrance, weapons raised. Behind them came a figure Jake had hoped never to see again. Vex-Prime Nexus was the station administrator. His body was made of living metal that shifted and flowed like liquid mercury. Where other Vex had simple mechanical forms, Nexus was elegant and deadly. He spoke with a voice like grinding gears. "Dr. Miller, you are in violation of galactic health codes. Surrender the infected alien immediately." "She is not infected anymore," Jake said. "Her fever broke hours ago." "Irrelevant. The quarantine order is absolute." Nexus moved closer. "Step away from the patient." Jake stood between Nexus and Zara. "No, this is your final warning, human. Then arrest me, but you will not take her." Nexus gestured to his guards. "Remove the human. Secure the alien for transport." The guards moved forward. Jake raised his hands, ready to fight even though he knew it was hopeless. But before anyone could touch him, alarms began blaring throughout the station. "Sir," one guard said into his communicator, "we have a problem in Section 7. Multiple species are refusing to allow security access. They say they are protecting their own patients." More reports came in. Aliens throughout the lower levels were hiding their sick and injured. They remembered how Jake had helped them, and now they were helping him. The station's careful order was breaking down. Nexus looked furious. "Seal this section. No one enters or leaves. We will deal with this rebellion quickly." But as the guards moved to follow orders, Jake realized something had changed. For the first time since the Kithara genocide began, people were standing up and saying no. It had started with one human doctor treating one alien girl. Now it was spreading like fire through the forgotten corners of the galaxy. Zara grabbed Jake's hand. "You start something big," she whispered. "My people would be proud." Jake squeezed her hand gently. "We are just getting started." The security guards surrounded Jake's clinic, but they could not enter. Jake had done something that surprised everyone. He had welded metal plates across his door and windows. Inside, he had set up barricades made from medical equipment and furniture. "This is now human territory," Jake announced through the clinic's communication system. According to Galactic Law Section 47, any human citizen can claim sovereign space for medical emergencies. I claim this clinic as an emergency medical facility under human protection. Vex Prime Nexus studied the barricaded door. His metal face showed no emotion, but Jake could hear anger in his voice. "That law applies only to uninhabited space, human. This clinic is part of Haven Station. The law does not specify uninhabited space," Jake replied. "It says any space needed for emergency medical care. I have a patient who will die without treatment. This qualifies as an emergency." Jake had spent years reading galactic law during quiet nights in his clinic. Most doctors never bothered with legal studies, but Jake had learned that knowledge could be a weapon when used correctly. Nexus spoke to his guards in the Vex language. Jake could not understand the words, but he recognized the tone. The administrator was frustrated and angry. After a few minutes, Nexus turned back to the clinic. "Very well, human. You wish to play legal games. But remember, even sovereign territory needs supplies. How long can you survive without food, water, or power?" As if summoned by his words, the lights in Jake's clinic went dark. The air circulation stopped. Even the medical equipment powered down to emergency battery mode. Jake had expected this. He moved to a hidden panel in the wall and flipped several switches. Suddenly, power returned to his clinic. The lights came back on, and the air started flowing again. "How?" Nexus demanded. From outside the clinic came a new voice. "Because humans help other humans, you metal piece of trash." Lisa Park stepped into view. She was a small woman with grease-stained coveralls and a tool belt around her waist. Lisa worked in the station's engineering section, maintaining the power systems and life support. She had rerouted power from the main grid directly to Jake's clinic through the maintenance tunnels. "Miss Park," Nexus said coldly, "you are interfering." with official station business. I am doing my job, Lisa replied. Maintaining power to essential medical facilities. Nothing in my contract says I have to turn off power to help you kill sick aliens. More humans appeared in the corridor. Carlos Rodriguez wore the uniform of station security, but he stood with Lisa instead of with Nexus's guards. Behind him came maintenance workers, shop owners, and office clerks. They formed a loose circle around the clinic. What is the meaning of this? Nexus demanded. Carlos stepped forward. He was a big man with kind eyes and calloused hands. We are here to make sure Dr. Miller gets a fair chance to help his patient. Nothing more. You are interfering with galactic health protocols. We are protecting human sovereign territory, Carlos said calmly. Just like you would protect Vex territory if someone tried to break into it. Inside the clinic, Jake smiled as he listened to the conversation. He had not asked for help, but it was coming anyway. This was something the other species did not understand about humans. When one human stood up for something important, others would stand with them. Zara sat up on her medical bed. She was much stronger now, able to speak clearly and move without pain. Your people are brave, she told Jake, but they will suffer for helping me. Maybe, Jake said, but they know it is the right thing to do. Jake continued treating Zara, but now he faced new challenges. Standard galactic medicine was designed for the most common alien species. It worked well for energy-based beings like the Vex or silicon-based creatures like the Altarians. But Zara was carbon-based like humans, and her biology was closer to Earth animals than to most galactic species. This gave Jake an advantage that other doctors did not have. He understood carbon-based life. He knew how blood and organs and bones worked together. When Zara's condition became complicated, Jake used techniques he had learned treating human soldiers in combat. The fever medicine is not working anymore, Zara said weakly. The sickness is fighting back. Jake checked her blood samples under his microscope. The crimson flux was indeed adapting to his treatment. But Jake had an idea. Instead of fighting the disease with alien medicines, he would use human techniques. I am going to try something different, Jake told her. Something the people who made this disease never expected. Jake prepared a treatment using human military field medicine. He had learned these techniques during his time as a combat medic. They were rough and simple compared to galactic medicine, but they worked. Instead of trying to kill the disease directly, Jake would help Zara's own immune system fight it. He gave her medicines that boosted her natural defenses. He used techniques to strengthen her blood and organs. He even used old human remedies that his grandmother had taught him as a child. This is impossible, came a voice from outside. Dr. Ross had arrived with a team of medical experts. Primitive human medicine cannot cure crimson flux. Our best doctors have tried for years. Maybe that is the problem, Jake called back. Maybe. Your doctors are too advanced to see the simple solution. As Jake worked, more aliens began gathering outside his clinic. But these were not security forces or government officials. These were the people from the lower levels. Refugees, workers, and outcasts who had heard about the human doctor standing up to the authorities. An old Rigelian female pushed through the crowd. Dr. Miller, she called, you fixed my grandson's broken leg last year. If you need food or supplies, my family will provide them. A group of pixie traders offered to smuggle in medical supplies through the air vents. A clan of Zephyrian miners said they would block any attempt to cut through the clinic walls. This is madness, Nexus declared. The entire lower level is in rebellion. No, said Carlos. The lower level is finally standing up for itself. Inside the clinic, Zara's condition began to improve rapidly. Jake's simple human treatments were working better than any galactic medicine had ever worked. The disease that had killed thousands of Kithra was being defeated by techniques that advanced aliens considered primitive. How do you feel? Jake asked. Zara smiled. The first real smile Jake had seen from her. I feel strong. Like my body remembers how to fight. That is exactly what is happening. Your immune system is winning. But their victory was short-lived. Through the communication system came the voice of Ambassador Clark. Dr. Miller, this is your final warning. A coalition fleet is approaching the station. They have orders to deal with this biological threat by any means necessary. Surrender now or face the consequences. Jake looked out through a small gap in his barricades. In the distance, he could see the lights of approaching ships. The coalition had sent warships to deal with one sick alien girl and one stubborn human doctor. Zara, Jake said quietly, I think we need to talk about what you are really carrying. Zara's expression became serious. You are right, Jake Miller. I am not just a refugee. I am the memory keeper of my people. I carry the genetic patterns and cultural knowledge of the entire Kithera species. That is why they hunt me. That is why they fear me. Jake understood now. This was not about one girl or one disease. This was about the survival of an entire species. And somehow, a human combat medic with a small clinic in the bottom of a space station had become the last hope for bringing the Kithera back from extinction. Outside, the coalition ships grew larger and brighter. Inside, Jake prepared for the fight of his life. The coalition ships arrived at Haven Station like dark clouds before a storm. Jake watched them through his small window as they formed a blockade around the station. There were 12 ships in total. Altarian cruisers with their elegant white. HULLs, Vex destroyers that looked like metal spiders. Even some species Jake did not recognize. They came fast, Zara said. She stood beside Jake, no longer weak from her illness. The human treatments had cured her completely, but now they faced a much bigger problem. Too fast, Jake agreed. It takes days to organize a fleet like that. They were already prepared. Zara nodded sadly. They have been hunting me for 2 years. Every time I find a place to hide, they come. Every time someone tries to help me, they disappear. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean, disappear? Doctors, scientists, anyone who learns the truth about Crimson Flux. They have accidents. Their ships malfunction. They get sick with mysterious diseases. Zara looked at Jake with worried eyes. I should not have come here. Now you are in danger too. Before Jake could respond, his communication system buzzed. The voice that came through was not from the station. It was from the coalition fleet. Doctor, Jake Miller, this is Admiral Kane of the Altarian Confederacy. You are harboring a dangerous biological weapon. Surrender the subject immediately, or we will take action. Jake picked up the communicator. This is Dr. Miller. I am treating a patient who has recovered from her illness. There is no biological threat here. You do not understand the situation, human. The subject carries genetic material that could recreate the entire Kithera species. This cannot be allowed. Jake felt his anger rising. Since when is it illegal to preserve a species? Since that species was judged unfit for galactic society. The Kithera were aggressive, diseased, and dangerous. Their extinction was necessary for galactic peace. That is a lie, Jake said loudly. The Kithera were peaceful. You created the disease that killed them. There was silence from the fleet. For a long moment. When Admiral Kane spoke again, his voice was cold. Dr. Miller, you have been misinformed. Report to your superiors immediately for correction and treatment. The communication ended. Jake realized that he had just confirmed everything the coalition feared. He knew the truth about their genocide. Now he was as much a target as Zara. Jake, Lisa's voice came through the door. You need to see this. Jake opened a small panel in his barricade. Lisa handed him a datapad with information she had downloaded from the station's computer system. I hacked into the medical database, Lisa said quietly. Look at this. The datapad showed medical records from across the galaxy. Hundreds of doctors and scientists had studied crimson flux over the past 5 years. Jake read their reports with growing horror. Dr. Elena Vasquez, from the human colony of New Mexico, had discovered that crimson flux was artificially created. She died in a shuttle accident 3 days after filing her report. Professor Thakmore, from the Rigelian Science Institute, had proven that the disease only affected Kithera genetics. He suffered a fatal heart attack at age 42, despite being in perfect health. Dr. Sarah Kim, from Earth Centers for Disease Control, had traced the biological weapon back to Coalition research facilities. Her research ship exploded during a routine mission to study asteroids. The list went on and on. Every scientist who discovered the truth about crimson flux had died within weeks of their discovery. They killed all of them, Jake whispered. Gets worse, Lisa said. Look at the shipping records. The datapad showed transport logs from before the Kithera War. Coalition ships had delivered medical supplies to Kithera colonies just months before the disease outbreak. The supplies included water purification systems and atmospheric processors. They poisoned the air and water, Zara said, reading over Jake's shoulder. Then they waited for us to get sick. When we asked for help, they said, we were too dangerous to approach. Jake felt sick to his stomach. The Coalition had not just committed genocide. They had made it look like mercy. They had convinced the galaxy that letting the Kithera die was the right thing to do. Why? Jake asked. Why kill an entire species? Zara pulled a small crystal from a hidden pocket in her clothing. It glowed with soft blue light and felt warm to the touch. Because of these, she said, memory crystals. My people discovered how to store consciousness and genetic information in crystalline matrices. We could preserve our knowledge and even recreate our species if we ever faced extinction. Jake stared at the crystal. This contains your people's minds? Not minds. Patterns, genetic templates, cultural knowledge, scientific discoveries, everything needed to rebuild our civilization. Zara held the crystal carefully. The Coalition learned about our memory crystals. They realized that Kithera could never truly be destroyed as long as these existed. So they decided to wipe out every Kithera in the galaxy. Yes, and hunt down every crystal. I am the last keeper. When I die, my people die forever. Jake was beginning to understand the true scope of what they faced. This was not just about one alien girl or one space station. This was about preventing the complete extinction of an entire species. His communication system buzzed again. This time, the voice belonged to Commander Wright. Jake, this is Paul. I am speaking to you as a friend, not as an officer. The Coalition is offering humanity a trade agreement worth billions of credits. New technology, exclusive trading rights, even membership in the Inner Council. All we have to do is hand over one alien refugee. And if we refuse, they will declare humanity an enemy of galactic peace. Our colonies will be blockaded. Our ships will be banned from Coalition space. Earth itself could face sanctions. Jake closed his eyes. One girl's life against the future of the entire human race. It was an impossible choice. Paul, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you have children? You know I do. 2 daughters. What kind of galaxy do you want them to live in? One where powerful governments can wipe out entire species and call it justice. One where doctors are murdered for trying to save lives. There was a long silence. When Commander Wright spoke again, his voice was quiet. Jake, you are asking me to risk everything on principle. No, Paul. I am asking you to risk everything for the right reasons. The communication ended. Jake did not know if his words had made any difference, but he had to try. Outside his clinic, he could hear more people gathering. Aliens from dozens of species were coming to the lower levels. Some came to support him. Others came to demand he surrender. The station was dividing into two sides, and Jake was caught in the middle. Zara touched his arm gently. "Jake Miller, you have done enough. Give me a ship, and I will leave. Your people should not suffer for my sake." Jake looked at her determined face. "Where would you go?" "Into the deep space beyond Coalition territory. I will hide until they stop looking for me. And if they never stop looking?" Zara smiled sadly. "Then my people's story ends with me. But at least it will end with honor." Jake shook his head. "No, Zara, your people's story is not going to end. Not if I can help it." Through his window, Jake could see Coalition soldiers preparing to board the station. Time was running out, and he still did not have a plan. But he knew one thing for certain. He would not let the Kithra die while he still drew breath. The Coalition soldiers moved through Haven Station like a disease. They wore black armor and carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Jake watched them through his small window as they set up checkpoints and searched every room in the O. Lower levels. "Attention all residents." Admiral Kane's voice echoed through the station speakers. "We are conducting a biological containment operation. Report any contact with the infected subject immediately. Failure to cooperate will be considered an act of terrorism." Jake felt the walls of his clinic shake as heavy footsteps passed overhead. The Coalition forces were not just searching. They were taking control of the entire station. "They are evacuating the human levels," Carlos reported through the communication system. "Buses are taking people to transport ships. They say it is for safety, but the ships are heading away from the station. They are removing witnesses," Jake realized. "If no humans are here to see what happens, they can tell any story they want." Later, Zara sat quietly on the medical bed, holding her memory crystal. "I am sorry, Jake. I brought this disaster to your people." "You did not bring anything," Jake said firmly. "This started long before you arrived. The Coalition has been planning this genocide for years." A new voice came through the communication system. It was Dr. Ross, and she sounded frightened. "Jake, please listen to me. Ambassador Clark is here with Coalition representatives. They are offering humanity a final deal." "What kind of deal?" "Full membership in the Galactic Council. Access to all Coalition technology. Protection for every human colony in space." Dr. Ross paused. "All you have to do is walk away." Jake laughed bitterly. "Walk away and let them kill Zara." "Jake, please be reasonable. She is one alien. Humanity is 3 billion people across dozens of worlds. How can you risk so many lives for one person?" Before Jake could answer, a new voice spoke. It was Ambassador Clark, and her tone was cold and businesslike. "Dr. Miller, I am speaking directly to you now. The human government has reached a decision. You are ordered to surrender the alien immediately. If you refuse, you will be stripped of your citizenship and declared an enemy of humanity." Jake felt his heart sink. His own government was abandoning him. "And if I comply?" "You will be given a full pardon and a position as Chief Medical Officer for the new human territories. You will be rich, respected, and safe." Jake looked at Zara. She was staring at the floor, her shoulders slumped in defeat. She had heard this before on other worlds. Governments always chose profit over principle when the Coalition made their offers. "I need time to think," Jake said. "You have 10 minutes," Ambassador Clark replied. "After that, we will assume you have chosen to be humanity's enemy." The communication ended. Jake sat down beside Zara and put his head in his hands. Everything he had worked for was falling apart. His own people were turning against him. The coalition had won without firing a shot. "You should take their offer," Zara said quietly. "I understand. Your people need you more than I do." Jake looked at her sad yellow eyes. "Is that what you really think?" "I think you are a good person trying to do the right thing in an impossible situation." "Then let me ask you something. If you give up now, what happens to your people?" "They remain extinct forever." "And what happens to the coalition?" Zara thought for a moment. "They prove that genocide is profitable. They will do it again to other species." Jake nodded. "That is what I thought." He stood up and walked to his communication system. When he spoke, his voice was calm and clear. "Ambassador Clark, this is Dr. Jake Miller. I have made my decision." "Excellent. Prepare to transfer the alien to coalition custody." "No," Jake said. "I refuse." There was shocked silence from the other end. When Ambassador Clark spoke again, her voice was full of rage. "Dr. Miller, you are making the biggest mistake of your life." "Maybe, but it is my mistake to make. You just declared war on your own species." "No," Jake said. "I just chose to be human instead of being afraid." The communication system went dead. Jake knew that coalition forces would attack his clinic within minutes. But he also knew that he had made the right choice. "Jake," Carlos's voice came through a hidden channel that Lisa had set up. "We heard everything. The humans who are still on the station, we took a vote. And we are staying, all of us." Jake felt a warmth in his chest. "Carlos, you do not have to do this." "Yes, we do. You taught us something important today. Being human is not about being safe. It is about being brave when it matters most." Through his window, Jake could see other aliens gathering in the corridors. Not just humans now, but refugees from dozens of species. They had heard Jake's refusal to surrender, and they were inspired by his courage. "Dr. Miller," came a new voice. It was the old Rigellian woman whose grandson Jake had treated. "My family fights with you. The coalition destroyed our first home, too." More voices joined in. Pixie traders who had been cheated by coalition merchants. Zephyrian miners whose worlds had been strip-mined by coalition corporations. Dozens of species who had suffered under coalition rule but had never found the courage to resist. "This is madness," Admiral Kane announced over the station speakers. "You are all harboring a biological weapon. Surrender now or face the consequences." "What biological weapon?" Carlos shouted back. "We see a healthy alien girl and a human doctor. Where is this terrible disease you keep talking about?" Jake smiled. The Admiral had made a mistake. By claiming Zara was still infected, he had revealed that the coalition was lying about the medical threat. "People of Haven Station," Jake announced through the station's communication system. "Look around you. Do you see anyone getting sick? The coalition has been here for hours. If Crimson Flux was really contagious, half the station would be infected by now." Murmurs ran through the crowds outside. Jake was right. No one was getting sick. The coalition's excuse for their actions was falling apart. "Furthermore," Jake continued, "I have medical proof that Crimson Flux was artificially created by coalition scientists. It was designed as a biological weapon to justify genocide against the Kythera people." "Lies!" Admiral Kane's voice was angry. "Now, the human is delusional. He has been infected by alien parasites that control his mind." But Jake's words had already spread through the station. People were talking, questioning, demanding answers. The coalition's careful propaganda was unraveling. "Sir?" came a voice from outside Jake's clinic. It was one of the coalition soldiers. "The crowds are getting larger. Some of the station security forces had joined them. We may have a problem." Jake looked at Zara. "Are you ready for this?" She gripped her memory crystal tightly. "I have been ready for 2 years." Then let us show the galaxy what happens when good people stop being afraid. Jake began removing the barricades from his clinic door. It was time to face the Coalition directly. Time to stop hiding and start fighting for what was right outside. The crowds were chanting his name. Inside, Zara stood beside him, no longer a frightened refugee, but a proud keeper of her people's legacy. The battle for Haven Station was about to begin. Jake opened his clinic door and stepped into the corridor. The crowd that greeted him was larger than he had expected. Hundreds of aliens from dozens of species filled the narrow passages of the lower levels. They looked at him with hope, and the determination. Coalition soldiers surrounded the crowd, their weapons drawn, but not yet firing. They seemed confused by the situation. Their orders were to capture one alien girl and one human doctor. They had not prepared for an uprising of the entire station. Dr. Miller, Admiral Kane's voice came from speakers throughout the station. You have 30 seconds to surrender before we begin pacification procedures. Jake looked at the faces. Around him, these were not soldiers or politicians. They were ordinary people who had decided to stand up for what was right. He could not let them down. Lisa, Jake called out. Is the communication array ready? Lisa Park stepped forward with a complex device made from spare parts and station equipment. Ready, Doc. This will broadcast to every ship and station within 50 light years. Carlos, can you protect her while she works? Carlos Rodriguez nodded and gathered a group of humans and aliens around Lisa. They formed a protective circle as she began connecting her device to the station's main communication system. People of Haven Station, Jake announced loudly. Today, we tell the galaxy the truth about what happened to the Kithra people. Today we show them that genocide will not be ignored. Admiral Kane's voice cut through the air. Begin pacification. Stun settings only. We need the human alive for questioning. The Coalition soldiers raised their weapons, but before they could fire, something unexpected happened. Station security forces stepped between the soldiers and the crowd. These were not Coalition troops, but local security officers who worked for Haven Station itself. Stand down, ordered Captain Maria Santos, the head of station security. She was a tough woman with gray hair and scars from years of keeping peace in the lower levels. You have no authority to use weapons against unarmed civilians. We are operating under galactic health emergency protocols, one Coalition soldier replied. Show me the paperwork, Captain Santos demanded. Where is the official health emergency declaration? Where is the evidence of biological contamination? The soldier hesitated. Jake realized that the Coalition had acted too quickly. In their rush to capture Zara, they had forgotten to file the proper legal documents. You have no paperwork because there is no emergency, Jake called out. They are here to commit murder, not to protect public health. Enough! Admiral Kane's voice was filled with rage. All Coalition forces switched to lethal settings. Eliminate all witnesses. But the soldiers did not move. They looked at each other with uncertainty. They had signed up to fight dangerous enemies, not to massacre civilians in a space station corridor. Sir, one soldier said into his communicator, request clarification. Are we authorized to use deadly force against unarmed non-combatants? The response was immediate. You are authorized to use any force necessary to complete the mission. Jake saw his chance. Lisa now. Lisa connected the final wire to her communication device. Suddenly, Jake's voice was broadcasting across half the galaxy. My name is Dr. Jake Miller. I am a human doctor on Haven Station. For the past 3 days, I have been treating a young alien named Zara. She is the last survivor of the Kithra. Genocide. Jake held up the data pad that Lisa had given him earlier. I have evidence that the Kithra were not destroyed by natural disease. They were murdered by an artificially created biological weapon. The Coalition governments created crimson, flux specifically to kill Kithra and make their genocide look like a mercy killing. He could hear gasps and angry voices from across the station. People who had believed the Coalition's lies were learning the truth for the first time. Furthermore, Jake continued, the Coalition has spent years murdering scientists and doctors who discovered this truth. They killed anyone who tried to help the Kithra or expose their crimes. Zara stepped forward, holding her memory crystal high so everyone could see it. I am Zara, daughter of Commander Thek, defender of Kithra Prime. I carry the genetic memories of my people. The Coalition hunts me not because I am diseased, but because I represent hope that the Kithra can return. Her words spread through the station and across space. On dozens of worlds, people were listening. Many had never heard of the Kithra before. Others remembered the news reports about the plague species that had died out. Now they were learning that those reports were lies. Admiral Kane's voice cut through the broadcast. Destroy the communication array. Kill anyone who tries to stop you. The Coalition soldiers finally moved, but they were too late. As they advanced toward Lisa's position, something remarkable happened. The crowd did not run or scatter. Instead, they stood together. Humans, Rigelians, Pixies, Zephyrians, and dozens of other species linked arms and formed a living wall between the soldiers and the communication array. You want to hurt Dr. Miller? Carlos shouted. You go through all of us first. The soldiers stopped. These were professional military personnel, but they were not murderers. They could not bring themselves to shoot down hundreds of unarmed civilians who were only standing together peacefully. This is mutiny, Admiral Kane declared. All Coalition forces, you are ordered to fire immediately. But the soldiers lowered their weapons. One by one, they stepped back. Some even removed their helmets and threw down their guns. I did not sign up to kill innocent people, one soldier said loudly. Find someone else to do your dirty work. Jake's broadcast continued to spread across the galaxy. On Coalition worlds, people were taking to the streets, demanding answers about the Kithra genocide. On independent worlds, governments were calling. Emergency sessions to discuss what they had learned. Dr. Miller came a new voice over the communication system. It was not from the Coalition fleet. It was from a ship Jake did not recognize. This is Captain Jennifer Liu of the independent freighter New Hope. We have been listening to your broadcast. Request permission to dock and provide assistance. More voices joined in. Ships from across the sector were changing course toward Haven Station. Independent traders, exploration vessels, even some military ships from neutral governments. Word was spreading faster than the Coalition could control it. Admiral Kane made one final desperate attempt. All ships, this is Admiral Kane. Haven Station is under quarantine. Any vessel that approaches will be fired upon. Captain Liu's response was immediate. Admiral, we have 43 independent ships converging on your position. Are you prepared to start a war over one sick alien girl? The Coalition fleet found itself outnumbered and outgunned. More importantly, they had lost the moral authority to act. Their lies had been exposed to the entire galaxy. Jake looked at Zara. What happens now? Zara smiled, the first truly happy expression Jake had seen from her. Now my people live again. The memory crystals contain everything needed to recreate Kithra civilization. We can clone new bodies, restore our culture, rebuild our society. Where will you go? There are worlds beyond Coalition space, empty planets where we can start over. Zara touched Jake's arm gently. But first, I want to thank the human who saved us all. Jake shook his head. I did not save anyone. I just did what any good doctor would do. No, Zara said firmly. You did what a human would do. You stood up for what was right, even when it cost you everything. That is why humans will be remembered long after the Coalition is forgotten. 6 months later, Jake sat in his new clinic. It was much larger than his old one, with modern equipment and clean walls. The Galactic Medical Council had offered him the position of Chief Ethics Officer, overseeing medical care throughout the galaxy. The coalition governments had fallen one by one as their crimes were exposed. New governments had formed, based on principles of equality and justice rather than power and profit. The Kithera had established a new colony on a beautiful world called New Kithera, where they were rebuilding their civilization with the help of many species. Zara visited often. She was now the ambassador from New Kithera to the Galactic Council. She always brought news of her people's progress and gifts from their new world. How many Kithera are there now? Jake asked during her latest visit. Over 10,000, Zara replied proudly. The memory crystals contained the genetic patterns for our entire species. Soon there will be millions of us again. Jake smiled. And they will all know the story of how they were saved by a stubborn human doctor and a brave alien girl. They will know more than that, Zara said. They will know that when darkness covered the galaxy, humans brought light. They will know that when everyone else looked away, humans stood up and said, "No more." Jake looked out his window at the busy corridors of Haven Station. The lower levels were no longer forgotten places where outcasts hid. They had become the heart of a new galactic community, where all species were treated with dignity and respect. What we did here changed everything, Zara continued. But it started with one simple human idea. What idea was that? Zara smiled. That every life has value. That every person deserves help when they are sick or afraid. That standing up for what is right is more important than being safe.